Hi, this is Ted Kelly with another Ted's Hospitality Minute. Hey, today we've got a great guest on, a very interesting topic. His name is Tony Booth. He's with Stay in Charge, and he's going to tell us a little bit about what's going on in the hospitality EV charging world. Hey, Tony, how you doing, sir?
I'm doing great, Ted. Thanks for having me on today.
Hey, man, I am so interested in hearing what you're going to tell us and share with us about the EV charging world and how that's going to be impacting the hospitality world. So let me
Yeah, I'm
do this
looking
though.
forward to it too.
But before I dive into the electric vehicle stuff, tell me a little bit about you and your background. How did you decide to get into the EV world?
So I've been basically my background started out in construction. I've been in construction all my life, and over the last few years, I've been paying attention to this whole EV market, knowing that it was going to be a huge impact in construction. And as I got digging into it, learning about it, recognized there was a gap there. I had worked with a lot of developers building hotels, so I knew kind of the market that way, and I saw this gap of where the EV charging was going, and kind of a space in there where they weren't necessarily going to solve the hotel's problems right out of the gate. So that's what made me say, hey, let me try to get in here and come up with a good solution.
Awesome, awesome. So tell me a little bit, maybe a little bit of background. So the electric vehicle stuff is slowly, obviously ramping up, significantly here in the last few years with the advent of Tesla and, the car just being super successful. Are you seeing how the trend is ramping up in the hospitality world in terms of how they're looking at the EV and making available space for it at the hotel?
Yeah, I mean, because you see it on the news all the time now, right? Like it's every week there's a new article, whether it's GM going to all electric or Hertz, they just bought 100,000 electric cars to put in the rental fleet. So, what I see in the hospitality side is it's a little bit of a paradigm shift with the guests. EV drivers, once they start driving those vehicles, charge at night while they're at home. So they're going to look for the same in the hospitality side. So we're starting to see the adoption into the hotels, a couple spaces, different hotels depending on the locations and demographics.
Yeah, that is awesome. And I see that Ford, GM, all of those guys are really ramping up their electric vehicle production and how they're gonna, probably be pretty much an EV plant here in probably the next 10, 15 years, I would think.
Yeah, exactly. They're all kind of phasing out their internal combustion products to go to these EVs. And what's going to happen is it starts slow, like it has the last few years, small penetration, but eventually it's going to be really going fast. And kind of hit that side on the curve where it really takes off. And then all of a sudden we're sitting there, okay, where are the chargers?
Right, right. So, hey, the bad news, I guess, is we're not going to be using gas as much anymore.
No, no, we'll be moving away from some of that. And, there's always going to be those vehicles out there, and there's always a need for, typical energy.
Yeah.
But
So in the life of an EV owner, tell me a little bit about how they would plan strategically. I'm assuming how they would plan their trips out to be able to. How does that work? And is there some
Great.
type of technology helping that along now?
There is. So when they plan a trip, most of the time they're just doing their normal driving and they're coming home because they're not traveling over a couple hundred miles. So they're just plugging up. But when they go to
Great.
take a trip, they have to think about it now. How far am I going to drive? Where am I going to stop to get, some fast charging? And so anytime that they're traveling away from home, they would like to do just like they do at home, pull into their hotel, plug their car up, go to bed. So they use different apps. There's different plug apps out there, plug share and things like that they can use. There's actually some AI that plans a route for them. And, so that they'll get on and they'll search these apps and they'll figure out, kind of plan their trip ahead, where we got so spoiled with gas stations, we could just get in a car and drive. And when the light comes on, the next exit was going to have a gas station.
Yeah, that is so interesting because that's a whole different mindset folks that just are used to putting gas in the car, knowing I got gas. Okay, so I can do
Yeah.
whatever I got to do. That is going to take a little bit of a different thought pattern, as you said. So as a hotel guy, say they're planning to adopt the EV concept and want to be EV friendly for potential guests that may be looking for, stops along the way. How do they plan how much allocation they should give, say, in their parking lot for EV charging stations?
So most of the hotels we work with, we stay on top of all the trends and the adoption rates, and then we'll look at the hotel, and right now it's around 3%. So if you have 100 rooms, you really don't need more than 2 charging stations, because there's not enough cars out there to get any return on, why go buy the extra equipment? Now, if you're on a major highway and you're gonna, like if you're in a key location, if you're halfway between New York City and Orlando, you got vacationers coming down heading to Disney. If you're in the middle, they're going to stop and spend the night. So you may need a few more in a location like that. So we look at everybody's properties, where they are, and basically follow the trends. As more of these get adopted, we'll have to allocate more spaces for them.
Right. So what all is involved with setting up an EV charging station, say if you're a hotel that doesn't have any and they want to retrofit?
So it's biggest thing is looking at how we're going to do it. There's some out there now. We know, like Tesla destination chargers and all that, but most of those have been installed and we're not charging the guests. So we're giving away free gas, which right now that's not a huge deal. It costs you $6-8 to pay for that charge overnight. But when you start having 10, 15, 20 cars wanting to use your charger, that adds up. So we have to have a system that allows us to control who's going to use our chargers and how much we're going to charge them for that access.
And now, is that being managed now kind of like at a universal setup right now, or is it individual pockets of people that say, here's what you should charge for this, and somebody else may charge at different prices? I guess in the app world, I guess is where I'm going. Is there a standardized pricing concept for how you should charge for EV charging?
It's kind of what we do is look in the area, because the other thing to look at as a hotel, if my guest spends the night and they can't charge at my hotel, then in the morning they're going to go find a supercharger location. So what we do is look around, and if that supercharger station is charging 35 cents a kilowatt hour, then we know the hotel can charge 35 or 40 cents a kilowatt hour, and then that might cost them 12 cents. So they're making that extra revenue off of that charge, but they're providing the guest with the convenience of not having to get up in the morning and spend 45 minutes at a supercharger.
Yeah, and of course, in the hotel business, every line that you can get that's a revenue as opposed to an expense is an important item on their quarterly balance sheet, right?
Absolutely.
So,
I always tell everybody, like this is going to be an amenity at hotels, but it doesn't have to be a free amenity. We can at least recoup our costs and get a little ROI on it.
Right. So this is a great topic and very interesting one. So for the guys that are thinking about, okay, retrofitting, building a new hotel, you already kind of gave us some ground rules that, hey, kind of look at what the adoption rate is in the area. What else do they need to take into consideration when they're looking at adding, EV charging stations? I mean, I'm sure there's so much more to it than just seeing the charging station in the parking lot.
Right, just putting it in the parking lot, exactly.
Yeah, but I'm sure you, as an ex-construction guy, you realize there's a whole lot of stuff that goes into getting that to where somebody can just pull up and plug it in, right?
Right, exactly. There's a lot of that, the infrastructure side and all that. But really the biggest things that we try to, educate everybody on is you really want to make sure you can control access. Like we've had clients that, they found out they put some chargers in their property and the people in the neighborhood are using the chargers, not their guests, because it's free charging. So they park their car in their parking lot, plug up and walk home. So without control, you can't, there's a lot of options out there that you have no control over who plugs into that charger. and the hotel's paying for that power, and they're not even getting a room rent out of it.
So how do they control that? Is that going to be something like could be controlled by their key card for being a hotel
Yep.
guest? Is there, or the, like the Wi-Fi passcode or something like that? How do they
It-
control
it-
it?
exactly. So right now, like the solutions that are out there can be done with RFID cards, access codes, and then eventually it's all going to integrate right into the property management system, so it can verify the guest folio. Kind of like when you get into the hotel, you get on the Wi-Fi, and it will ask for your room number and name and verify that you're actually registered. That's in the works, not there yet, but right now, access codes, RFID cards, and then the guests can use mobile apps to pay for the charge and all that. So it's all seamless. They go up, they sign up, they charge, and the money comes out, and they pay the hotel for that charge.
Wow. Yeah. The whole platform is really there to just add it. So that's a nice add-on right there. So is there any maintenance costs after you set these things up for the hotel owner or the ownership group?
Yeah, there's some, obviously with anything you got maintenance, you're going to have different things. The cords or something may fray, landscapers hit them, whatever. You got some of that. The chargers are relatively reliable, but there is, you always got connectivity issues and things like that you have to pay attention to. So,
Right.
That's one side to look at. And then as time goes on, the chargers are going to change and evolve too, as the cars do. So there's also looking at that side of it and how you do your upkeep.
Yeah. And then the updating, is that control some type of software maintenance, I guess, some type of.
Yeah. Yep. So
Yeah.
like the ones we install are all fully networked. They're connected through a cellular tower, so you don't have Wi-Fi issues. And so all updates, monitoring, and there's several companies out there that'll do that. They'll monitor them 24/7, see if something's down on them, if there's any issues. And a lot of times we can remote fix it. Then we have a group of technicians all over that can be out to check on them if it's something that we can't fix online. So that's
Right.
all, things to think about as a hotel, because can you really expect the added burden on your staff?
And you guys have to be synced up with the car manufacturers, I'm assuming, because you got to keep the latest and greatest updates, I guess, in similar fashion as to how they keep this. Yeah.
Yep, we got to stay on top of all that to make sure. And then, like what's also going to come down the pike is, as each of these brands start coming out with their criteria of what they're going
Right.
to expect. That's a
Okay.
whole nother evolution of this whole product, right? As we start putting them in, and all of a sudden, one brand wants this type of control, the other brand wants this type of control. So it's got to stay pretty flexible, or you might, if you went out today and then went online and bought some chargers and threw them in your parking lot, a year from now, your brand might show up and say, oh no, you need this or that in order for it to be in compliance.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. There is a little bit of logistics there, isn't it? Keeping it all in line. So Tony, tell me this. So what are the 5, 6, maybe key points that you would try to give a hoteler that's thinking about the EV charging, whether we want to add it now, whether we want to wait, what are the 5 key points that you might give them to think about, and why they should want to come talk to you about it before they do something? How about that?
So the real simple thing, first of all, I tell everybody we talk to talk with their front desk people, the people answering the phones, and see if they've been getting phone calls, and tell them to start tracking that, because these EV drivers, when they're planning, they're going to call the hotel because they don't have a reliable source yet. So most of them will call. We get a lot of hotels go, yeah, we get 4 or 5 calls a week. So that's the main thing. First of all, that'll help tell you what kind of, interest is in your area. And then it's like, kind of go through the points of access and how you want to manage it all. And Ted, everybody's welcome. We've got some free resources we share with everybody. So, obviously they can connect with me after the show, and we've got a whole infographic on kind of walking yourself through the process and things to think about.
Yeah. I think that's awesome. And I think, And I think you're definitely in the right place because everything's moving toward EV. So, you know, it'll be something to see here in the next 5, 10 years, how many electric vehicles are actually on the road now versus, you know, gas
Right.
consuming vehicles. But so Tony, how can folks find you if they want to get in touch with Stay in Charge and talk about adding the EV charging stations to their property?
So the easiest way is just to call me or text me. My number is 912-399-3869. And, you know, obviously it'll be in the show notes, but that's really the easiest way, or they can, you know, reach me on an email. But I like to be available for everybody. So text in and calls, I answer them or text back. So, you know, and of course I'm on all the social media and all those kind of areas, but that's really the easiest way. Just call us.
That's awesome. I love your product. This has been another Ted's Hospitality Minute. We'll see you guys again. Have a great week.